I love about getting to host this show is talking to, of course, smart people. But the conversation today is going to be put in terms that non-programmers among us can understand. I'm going to be speaking with Shashank Shekhar, who, with no computer science education, no programming background, has managed to build a not only massive company, but then a company that specializes by using AI to get in the nitty-gritty and level people up. So if you want to know what you can do right now as a mere mortal without having a ton of educational background in AI, computers, or programming, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Humanize Automation. I'm your host, Dr. Jill Schiefelbein, and I get to interview a ton of different people on this show, which is one of the joys I love. So we take the conversation about AI and automation from a lot of different angles, but it's not all the time I get to have a conversation with someone who is intimately involved in the space. So I'm so excited to have Shashank Shekhar with us today. And this guy has built things from the ground up. He's innovated companies in the mortgage industry during the recession when most people bailed and started something else. And I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let him tell us about his journey. Shashank, welcome to the show.
First of all, thank you, Jill, for having me here. It's a true honor. I mean, you've had some really amazing guests. So to be on the same lineup is, as I said, is a privilege. But just to give a little background on myself to the audience here and set the stage up for our conversation. I came to the US in 2006. I went to business school in India, worked for GE, consumer finance just off my business school campus, then worked for a startup there and then got transferred here to Silicon Valley as head of business for them. But as things started looking pretty bright, I was doing everything that I wanted to. I was this hotshot startup funded by ING's VC firm at that time. Just almost immediately after I came to the US, 2007, 2008 happened. And we were in the mortgage space, and we all know how that played out. Practically everyone on the planet knows how that played out at that time. And so the company shut down, and I was left with 18 months in the country. I literally knew 3 people in the entire country back then, just about $1,900 in savings. And for me, it was always about, even when I went to business school, is that I'm doing all of this is because I eventually start my own business. And I don't know, call it naivete or just call it audacious. You can pick the adjective that you want. But I was like, I did all of this to line up that eventual think of starting my business. So what? It's 2008. So what? It's mortgages. It's probably the dirtiest word on the planet that year. And so what? I have so many headwinds in the sense that I have no capital, I have no connections, but yeah, I still started it because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an entrepreneur at that time, and that's that mortgage company was born. So again, it's not something that I would advise all the wannabe entrepreneurs to try. They're like, especially in their first venture, so to say, is because even as an entrepreneur, I was pretty new to it. So it's not as if I'd gone through this journey a few times and I was like, okay, I've seen this before. I can do this again. So a lot of headwinds, and it kind of proved right very quickly. I realized that probably a bad move on my part to be doing that. But sometimes it's a good thing that when you get baptism by fire, so to say, it just gets you prepared in a much better way. And so I was kind of forced to find business in a way which was not being used by the industry. So it's just because I was in a situation where I just didn't know anyone here, so I could not go to my sphere of influence, so to say, and Jill, hey, you and I went to school together. Now I'm in mortgage business. Give me some client, kind of a thing. That was just not an option. The only 3 people I knew were my coworkers from this company that just closed down. So, and of course, they were not buying anytime soon, so to say. So even in 2009, when it was very, very early, I went to I majored in marketing in my business school, and I went to Marketing 101. And one of the things that audience will probably understand is that one of the most basic rule is that you go where your audience goes. And what I was in Silicon Valley, and what I was seeing is that there were lots of immigration to Silicon Valley, a lot of high-tech workers there. And they had moved from consuming their news from, say, television and newspapers to more online. It was still something very new, but people were reading more blogs, people were watching more videos. And that's where I went. Even though I did not really have any experience in writing or speaking or recording video, let alone. It was very, very new. In 2009, I started blogging, and I started mostly talking about first-time home buying, is because that's where most of this audience which was coming to Silicon Valley. They were all, as I said, they were immigrants, so they were all interested in buying their first home and realizing this big American dream. So I still remember that there were less than 10 of us who were blogging in 2009 in the mortgage industry. But I had to be innovative, as they say. Necessity is the mother of invention in some cases. And I won't bore the audience with the entire story, but that's how it started. I mean, 5-6 years later, I was one of the top 200 loan officers in the country. A couple of years later, I was one of the top 15, and then went on to, of course, build InstaMortgage, my mortgage company, as one of the fastest growing mortgage company, not just in the US, but in the entire continent, as Financial Times ranked us. So really happy on what I did looking back. I don't know if it was a great decision in 2008, but sitting in 2025, I think it's been pretty exciting for sure.
What I love about, like, if you re-look at all of your story, and this is a huge lesson, and I had this belief when I started my business too, you focused on education. You focused on giving information and educating others, whether it was other mortgage and loan officers, whether it was, as you said, first-time home buyers. And I find that a lot of business owners, especially in tough times, for me, when my business was still growing, I'm like, well, what can I do? I can be writing content. I can be producing videos. I can be doing things that will help people. And eventually I had the belief that it would all come back to me. And still what you do with Insta AI is highly focused on that education piece. Tell us a little more about Insta AI and that company.
Sure. Yeah. But just a reflection on education. What you just said, Jill, is that a lot of challenger brands like us, I mean, especially coming into mortgage space where there are so many bigger players, and even AI, we'll talk about that shortly, is that education, I think, is a great leveler. You can still compete with the bigger brands, is because you can provide that value. I mean, I've always said this, is that even on the mortgage side, is that we are in the education and customer service business. We just happen to do mortgages. And that's true for practically everything that I've done, is that whether it was educating first-time homebuyers or educating loan officers on how to grow their business so that they can be part of it, they can be part of InstaMortgage. Education, I've always believed, has been a great leveler. And then, if anything has been a great leveler, I think AI takes it to a completely different notch. And my journey into Insta AI, or creating it, is probably not as interesting, but I got on a webinar on ChatGPT almost just about a month or two after it was released, and just was blown away by both what it was already capable of doing. And in my head, I was thinking about what the potential could be. And I'm always thinking about what is the use case. It's not always about what I'm seeing on the screen right now, or I'm hearing, say a speaker. Is about how does it apply to me? How does it apply to people I work with? And so in my head, that's what I'm thinking. And a couple of months later, Morgan Stanley launched its first financial advisor assistant. That was probably the first Gen AI tool for the financial services industry as a whole. And I was like, why can't I do that for mortgage industry? Why can't I build that for my own loan officers? And I talked to, I don't know, probably a couple dozen developers at that time. And all of them said, oh, Morgan Stanley had a partnership with OpenAI, and they were working on this even before ChatGPT came out. So they were working in the back end for probably over a year. And you don't have that kind of budget. You, of course, don't have any partnership with OpenAI, and this can't be built. But I wanted to build a similar kind of assistant where our loan officers at InstaMortgage will be able to access guidelines. And as you know, our guidelines within mortgage industry are probably as big and voluminous as, say, an IRS tax code is thousands of pages. We are not talking a few hundred pages. And shuffling through that, finding information through that has always taken them minutes, sometimes even hours, and even sometimes inaccurate information because they're trying to find it on the web or something. And then, so there were multiple use cases that I had in my mind. I just could not find anyone to build it. Eventually, I found someone who wanted to take a shot at it. He thought that this is something. So he and I partnered on that. And we built Insta AI, which was the first, in fact, as far as I know, there are still very few platforms, but it was the first ever full platform, so to say, as Gen AI platform for loan officers to improve their efficiency and productivity. And very quickly, we started tracking numbers, and it was already showing almost 67% improvement in their efficiency in the certain field. So we went from just checking the guidelines to then creating another module, which was creating content for them, customized to the mortgage industry. And then we built a complete sales training platform on upskilling called Coach AI. And that was role playing through personas that we created, master coaches to help them coach and train on everything. Because as we know, a lot of people come into sales, especially, and that's true for real estate and mortgages, but that's true for most of the industries with no formal training. I mean, they just learn on the job, so to say. And I want to create something which can upskill them to a point where they are probably at par with people who have gone to college and gotten sales degrees and everything. So that was my big vision behind it. And of course, it takes a lot of iteration, lots of going back and forth. But what I like about it is that it came to life. It solves real world problem within the industry. And then in terms of just pure ROI, so to say, it shows clear numbers, clear KPIs, where it shows improvement both in their ability to sell better and ability to do things faster and better.
I love so much about what you said. So I want to break down a few things.
Sure.
Number one, so we are 100% aligned on this, education angle. And then building this is finding a way for people to increase efficiencies. And I want to stress to people, you've heard me say it on the show, those of us who are in this space, for the most part, who are user-focused, AI consultants, experts, whatever in our fields, we are focused on the human use cases of it, not replacing the humans. In fact, actually helping humans be more human. And Shashank's, the module on the Coach AI on sales training, it's how do we use technology to enable us to be more human, to humanize the experience, to have better conversations? And I think the people who are getting ahead in this game faster are not the ones who are like, oh, look, it can generate me as an action figure or a Barbie. It's how are we actually applying this to a real world problem that's solving a friction or frustration or attrition pain point in someone's life so that we can have a solution that helps them do what they do better.
Yeah, I mean, if you just let's just focus on the Coach AI module here, is that again the reason for me building that was it's the same thing going back to education. But the problem is that if you are, say, a newer loan officer or newer financial services planner or insurance agent, real estate agent, anything within even accountant or something, and I've talked to people within multiple industries. The problem is that scaling coaching becomes very hard. Either you have one of the two problems. Either you work with somebody who's really good, but they're very expensive and I can't afford them, or you do the same generic training for everyone, which means that it's not personalized to me. It's not customized to me. So I'm getting the same training that Jill is getting. Jill is getting the same training as Susan is getting. And it's okay to a point, but it does not give me the same kind of upskilling that I'm looking at. And that's a problem we're trying to solve, is that how do we scale coaching, but to still keep it hyper personalized to the individual who's getting coached at a cost which is 1/100th of the cost of say some of the top priced coaches in the industry. And that's what was the goal behind building Coach AI. And the power of large language model, as most of your audience, of course, has heard you for a long period of time, but it's that in one coach, I can build the knowledge of 100 coaches, is because I can build my master coach, which is called Zig, which is a tribute to Zig Ziglar, of course, does not just know all about what Zig Ziglar used to teach, but all the top sales coaches, authors, trainers, speakers of, say, last 2 or 3 decades. Imagine getting one coach with that kind of information and then coached on the domain part of it, which is, it does not just give generic training, but gives training which is in context to the mortgage industry. So that's the beauty of taking AI to a very different level and be able to coach your team members in that context. So yeah, really, really happy with, again, as you said, not generating Barbie images or super action figures. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, all cool. You should play with it. There are lots of fun stuff to do. But if you're a business person like I am, I'm constantly thinking about what is the real use cases for some of those things.
It's interesting. So I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, I was on a newscast at Fox News down in Tampa about this AI trend, and they were asking me a lot of questions. And I said, listen, like ChatGPT is now the most downloaded app in the world, or at least at that time it was. Every day it changes, but at that moment it was. And with that, I said the action figure generation and everything, it's not necessarily a bad thing because people are learning how to communicate with the machine. They're learning how to iterate back and forth. And a lot of people, when ChatGPT first came out, they asked it one question and asked it to do one thing, and they didn't give it very good instructions. And it's the same thing. I tell people, I said, pretend you have a brand new entry level first day employee. If you have that, the instructions that you would give that human, give those instructions to the machine. But when we get into these specifically trained large models that have natural language processing capabilities that are trained on specific knowledge bases, like what you're talking about, we can get further ahead so much faster because we can customize that learning path of the individual. If they have, part A on, establishing the need of the client down pat, then it's about how do we generate more conversations? Or if they're having a hard time understanding what are the pain points of the potential customer, what are the conversation starters that get us there? And when you have specifically trained models, you have the power to do that and help people a whole lot faster.
Yeah, and specific training is, I think, the most important thing. Anyone can plug into, say, an OpenAI API or Anthropic's API or any of these API that's available. Someone can be trained in a day or two to be able to do that, right? What really elevates some of these platforms is two things, right? The domain training, which is understanding within the context of the industry, and two, the training inside or off your organization, right? Building that knowledge base is very important. The guideline module that we built, which is, say, thousands of pages of everything, is that what you see in any typical organization, Jill, is that the knowledge is everywhere. You have it in emails, you have it in Google Drives, you have it in Dropbox, you have it in, PowerPoint slides, Google Slides. Now, if I'm going for a presentation, suddenly I'm like, oh, where's that product guide? And I'm emailing my manager who's emailing someone else. Or a newcomer, as you said, somebody new to the job, they have thousands of HR questions, right? And we have built intranet, which has been the case for almost 20 years now. But even within intranet, you have to go find that information. I can't make it NLP, as you said. I can't make it where I just type how does my 401k work? What kind of contribution does there come? I don't have to go read the 401k manual, like 20 pages of it, to get answer to that one specific question that I'm looking at. All these use cases, you're using, of course, we don't have billions to build a large language model, but the good news is that's already built. And that's why I said it's a great leveler, is because I can do what already is done by OpenAI or Anthropic or Google or Llama or Meta here, and then can build on top of it because they don't have the same domain expertise that I do. I've been in 20 years in the mortgage industry. I probably understand more about more mortgages than ChatGPT does, for example. And of course, they don't know as much about InstaMortgage. Of course, absolutely not, because we have our internal policies, we have our internal guides, we have our internal sales training. What if I could take that model, which is what the genesis of InstaAI was, and build that? First, we train that on the domain, which is the mortgage industry here. And on top of that, we train it with our company-specific information. And now we are converting and as we build more modules and make it even more efficient, and that's the power of AI, is that it has been evolving so quickly, is that very soon those loan officers will start looking superhuman in terms of how quickly they are able to answer, how better they are able to answer, how efficiently they are able to perform the task. I think just a couple of weeks back or yesterday, I was reading Wall Street Journal news, is that prompt engineering, which was the hottest job of 2023 in AI, is already obsolete. And it used to pay almost $250,000 a year. I did not know that. I could have applied for that job. I thought I was pretty good at prompt engineering. But anyway, that in a way, it's a good thing, is that now AI by itself is very good at prompt engineering and you don't need an outside person to do it. But that's where I see the benefit of people saying, oh, all it does is writes content, or all it does is just it does this. I mean, if you build it the way I just said, and it's not that expensive, is because, small companies like us can do it. But that's where I think the real use case for the platform is.
Well, and I love that you talk about, it's about specificity, right? And that's like anything in this world, right? You take a sales training book from Zig Ziglar, any of these people, that knowledge is great, but it's only when you merge that knowledge with industry specific knowledge and context specific knowledge. The machines don't have the context that humans have. So what I love about what you've built is you're not taking the human out of it. You're enabling the human to perform better, faster, and more efficiently. And like, to me, that's a great definition of humanized automation. It's like, look, we are automating the access to information because it is impossible for someone to have the brain of a 1,000-page manual that can change every year. But if you have access to a tool that enables you to be able to retrieve information faster, it's huge. And what people, I think that you hit on so strongly and articulated it well, is that they don't understand. You can level the playing field as a tiny company if you spend the time and very minor investment in building knowledge specific modules on top of existing platforms.
Yeah, I love humanized automation, those two words, is because I've always believed, even when AI was not there or AI was way more complicated. I mean, technically AI has been there from 60s, 70s in terms of machine learning and everything else that we have done. But the current crop of AI, so to say, the generative AI was not there. Why humanized automation is very important. I'm just finished my manuscript of my new book on AI. We are not sure what we are going to title it yet, but I talk about both the synergy effect and the amplifier effect. And that comes from what you just mentioned, which is humanizing automation, right? The synergy effect is you need to build everything that the humans know with the capability of what the AI does. That's when you create that synergy of creating something, say, as beautiful as Insta AI and multiple. And I'm sure there are several other platforms. But once you've done that, then it creates the amplifier effect. As we say, then it's 1 + 1 is not 2, it's 11. And who knows, it will be 110 pretty soon, is because now you're doing everything that was mundane and something that was already in my head and I did not know how to put it in paper. So every newcomer who came in, he or she did not know where to get that information because I, sitting here for 20 years, I just have it in my head. I did not bring it down to the paper, which was not put into the knowledge base to then power that sales training or then power that, say, policy AI or any kind of module that we're building. So humanizing automation is where both the present already is, and that's where the future is because and that also takes away one of the, I would say, one of the concept against AI, so to say, is that, or say people who fear the fact that AI is going to replace human. AI is going to replace human to the effect that it'll take away some of the things that probably you don't want to do anyway. I mean, I don't want to be, for example, I mean, you talk about it, customizing and personalizing, say, communication and scale. But if I have created content, say one piece of content, and I send newsletter to about 20,000 people in the industry every 2 weeks, I don't have to create 7 different versions of it and write 7 different versions of it if I want to do A, B, C, D, E, F testing and send them 7 different versions of the newsletter. My AI can do that, right? Even ChatGPT, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to use my AI to do it, but even if you use one of the large language models, you can feed them using newsletter and say, create 7 different versions of it, keep the same tone and voice, but give me different subject lines, write it slightly differently so that the main theme of the newsletter stays the same, but they get slightly different message. Maybe the call to action is slightly different. Now you have created 7 different versions. I'm not saying you have to test 7 different versions of it, but technically you can create 7,000 versions of it. Really, if you have 7,000 people in database and they have some unique stuff that you can do, but that's the power. That's what we are looking at. That's where humanizing automation comes from, is that you are still working on giving the instructions that you want. You are still creating the tone and voice. When you invited me, you had I think you used render to create a digital avatar of you. It may sound slightly different because, I mean, we are still getting to a point where it will sound exactly like you, but still has the same tone and feel. And when I watched it, I'm like, okay, I mean, Jill sounds just like this. Of course, she looks like this. So we are getting there. And if we don't get in at the ground zero level where we are right now, probably first floor, maybe right now, you will very soon realize that we are on the 10th floor of the building already. And you were so circumspect is that, hey, I don't want to start now. Or probably the voice slightly lags right now. Jill sounds slightly robotic. If you do not test it now, tomorrow it'll get so much better, is that by then you'll like, oh, wish I had done that before, right? It's when iPhones came out and there were so many, iPhone by itself did very little. I mean, even now when you use iPhone, I mean, probably 95% of things that you do are through the apps that's built on iPhone, right? So, and that's the thing, large language models by itself, I mean, best case, large language models by definition can only predict the next character. That's all it does. If you think about it, it's mind blowing that that's all it does. But how we work with it and how we are able to utilize it to create all these beautiful and wonderful things, I think that's the power of it.
We are 100% aligned in so many ways. And it's funny that you talk about, and I love how you break it down. I do the same thing when I tell people, I'm like, it's a character at a time. It is literally predicting the next character. I said, for example, in your iPhone for years now, you have been texting and it's been suggesting words. And for example, my phone now knows that I do not type the word duck regularly, right? and people understand that though. They're like, oh, that's how it works. But when you have it trained with more knowledge, it can get more specific. And even to the point of, I love how you phrased it, like it's not going to replace humans, but it's going to replace the things you don't like to do. I was speaking to a client yesterday, actually, and he was like, well, I am the chat GPT for my company. You know, I've been around for a ton of years. And I love this guy. He's a great guy. And true, he has more company knowledge than anyone else in the company. Zero question about that. And I said, well, then, let's not even talk about that. Then let's talk about the things that you hate doing on a daily basis. He's like, oh, well, when I go to events, he's in business to business sales, I get all this list of names and they send it to me as like this PDF document with the name, the email, the company, et cetera. And I need that in Excel so I can import it. And it takes forever to do. And I said, it takes forever. It should take 30 seconds or less. You just throw that in chat GPT and prompt. He goes, there's no way it can do that. And I'm like, give me the document, and did it right there. And he's like, you just saved me hours every week. And I said, you're welcome. Now go buy me a bourbon. But like, everyone needs to start somewhere. And I love what you said about, it's not even ground zero. We're on level 1. And before you know it, it exponentializes to level 10. So I tell people, find one thing you hate doing that is friction, frustration, or attrition in your business, just one task, and start getting efficacy now. And then once you get some efficacy, you can start to look at what are industry specific tools. If you're in the mortgage industry and you haven't checked out Insta AI, like why not, right? Then go check out industry specific tools, but get some of your own education first. And there's tons of it out there for free.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even have engineering background or software background. I went to business school. In undergrad, I studied English literature. Don't ask me why, especially in India, where you don't get any job when you do that. But I was just so much in love with William Shakespeare. I thought, okay, that's what I want to study. Anyway, I sanity came to me, and I went to business school, and I learned something where I can get a job. But all of this AI, I mean, all the way to actually building a platform, and that too platform with multiple modules, not just one. All of this is self-taught. And so if I, with practically zero technical background, so to say, can do it, there's no reason why practically everyone listening to this podcast cannot. So it's not so much about, oh, I did not go and study computer science in college, or I'm not a software engineer. That's another great leveler about AI, is that if you spend enough time, and as Jill mentioned, if you are able to and willing to set aside certain hours, say in a day or in a week, you could learn as much as some of the experts on AI. In fact, a lot of experts that I listen to, most of it is just futurism for futurism's sake. Oh yeah, I will do this. Yeah, I will do that. They actually have much less domain expertise than you do. They have much less subject matter expertise than you do. So you could actually take some of these AI things like I did and be able to build something, or at least come up with, if you're part of an organization, come up to your CIO or CTO and tell them about some of the things that you can potentially build or be helpful in building. That some of these so-called AI experts can't. I mean, I was listening to managing director of Boston Consulting Group, and just a couple of months back, and everything that Insta AI already is, he was saying he's in ideation stage with some of the companies that they advise on how can they upskill their users, how can they do sales onboarding. And I was like, hello, we are already doing it, and we're probably 1/100th of a smaller size or 1,000th of a size of some of your clients. So I think sometimes we think that just because it's AI, we need a lot of technical experience, we need coding experience to understand it. And that's one thing about, at least after say 40, 50, 60 years of computer invention and programming invention, is where you and I get to play almost at the same level as some of these people who have computer science degrees or are software engineers and have been doing it for a couple of decades.
And what you said that I think I need to re-emphasize this for everyone on the line. It actually sometimes, if you're in a larger organization, it can hinder your development because there's so much red tape and everything. And this is what you said, it was a levelizer. I use the word equalizer a lot. Same, right? But it's a tiny company can get in and play with the quote unquote big dog simply because you don't have that infrastructure, that red tape, all of those things to go through. That's not saying that you shouldn't be careful, watch legal parameters, get advisors and all of that. But it's saying you have the agility to move a lot faster. And right now that speed needs to be used to your advantage.
Yeah, speed is a great differentiator. That's something that I've always believed in. Of course, being in the mortgage industry, speed has always been of importance to us. Even there, InstaMortgage always was a challenger brand, a smaller company, but speed was something that we've always thought that let's control the things that we can. Like we don't have $500 million ad budget, say, which the market leader has. We don't have, we can be hiring people from Harvard as management trainees. So those are things that we do not control. Speed is something we do control. That's something that can be our differentiation. Education is something which can be our differentiation. That's something that we control. So always look at, that's one of the things that I've learned is that always look at what you control and can create differentiation out of versus saying that, I can't compete with these big players because they have such much deeper pockets. You'll be surprised even with such deeper pockets, there are tons of things. In fact, as Jill, you mentioned, sometimes it's the opposite. Is because they're so big, they can't move as quickly as you. And we have seen that throughout the history of say economic evolution is that how small startups have been or smaller companies have been able to beat the giants, so to say, the David beating the Goliaths has always been the history of practically any industry that you look at. So why should it be any different for your industry? And definitely why should it be different for AI, which both Jill and I have been just kind of emphasizing again and again is a great equalizer or levelizer, whatever you call it. So no, I completely agree with that.
Well, Shashank, I think we could talk for hours on different topics, and I can't wait to read your new book. And my new book is in editing right now too, and I'm sure there's so many overlaps, but ways to explain it in different terms. And that's what's beautiful about it, right? Is you can look at the same problem from a different lens and add value in multiple ways. So before we close out this show, one of the things I love to ask people who are in the know is, what's an AI tool or use case that you're geeking out on right now?
I really love HeyGen. So HeyGen is kind of similar to Render that I think, Jill, you have been using. But we started using HeyGen very early, and we have some really good use cases. So we used to send, by the way, just for the audience to understand, HeyGen is a video generating platform that uses avatars. The one thing that's different with HeyGen and might be different with other platforms as well is that they don't really use any AI generated avatars. They actually had these humans come to their studio and record themselves and then made avatars from them. So none of them are AI generated. These are real humans sitting somewhere in the world. And two, of course, you can create, if you have not seen some of Jill's videos, you should watch it. You could probably watch some of mine on Instagram. But those are avatars created of myself. So I could be creating multiple content while not creating any content, so to say. All I need is a script, and I don't need to be in front of camera like now, is because we all know we don't always feel like being in front of camera, or some breaking news comes out and you could be traveling, but you still want a video to go out. And so not to mention that you can create a lot of things at scale. What I also like about HeyGen, especially now, is that they recently came up with an avatar where it's not just for video creation or not just for, say, content creation, but you can actually train that avatar on everything so tomorrow, it can, and we are still working on it, but it can potentially give almost the same level of consultancy or same level of coaching or same level of guidance as you as a human would. So it's the same thing about when we built Insta AI, we built it with a lot of knowledge base, but those were, say, PDFs and Excels and spreadsheets. But imagine if a video version of you were there, and that was powered by all this knowledge base of, say, Shashank in this case, or Jill in this case, then that human or that AI avatar of you will probably speak almost like you, and it will probably have the same level of expertise. Again, it will probably not get to a level of where you have empathy and you have sensitivity. We are not there yet. And you'll probably not laugh at your jokes sometimes. But some of the elements are there. And that's why we have been, I think, harping through this conversation is that we might be at level 1 right now. But if you don't get in here, if tomorrow it does get to 80-90% of you, imagine the kind of scale. You could be on 2 different webinars. You could be speaking at 2 different conferences almost at the same time. And we are not too far from that world, let me tell you that. But you have to get in. So yeah, HeyGen is probably my tool of choice, is because we've also done a lot of use cases on sending emails, just plain text versus sending it through AI avatars. And the open rate has been almost 2, 3, 4x. They just like the coolness factor, even though the information is almost exactly the same in 2 versions of it. So yeah, several use cases to go back to, but a tool that I'm definitely engaged with. And again, with any tool, I think whether you use Beautiful or Gamma or Render or HeyGen or 11 Labs, there are, of course, hundreds and thousands of them. The good thing is they're all evolving very quickly. So if you get in earlier, you get a sense of what the platform does at a very basic level. You will be evolving as the tool evolves. So you don't have to switch between one platform or the other just because I said I like HeyGen. If you were using Render or if you were using something else, stick with it, because all those tools are going to evolve into something better. Of course, if something nicer and better comes along, that's fine. But yeah, I think HeyGen and of course Canva has some amazing AI tools that they launched recently. But Canva we were using before AI days, of course, but they have really caught up to the entire AI revolution.
No, I love the shout out to HeyGen. So at Render, we're actually platform agnostic. HeyGen is one of our partners.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
So like
okay.
I have an avatar dressed as Santa on the base camp of Mount Kilimanjaro that I filmed on Christmas Eve when I was climbing Kilimanjaro, right? And it's through HeyGen. So it's it's an amazing space. And I got my first avatar. I don't know if I've actually talked about this on the show at all, in 2021. So even before ChatGPT was out. And so to your point, it doesn't matter right now. I tell people the tool is not the important thing right now. Awareness of tools is important, but the tool is not the thing. What's the human experience you're trying to create? What's a business goal, metric, KPI it ties to? Then pick a tool. Just don't go after a tool because it's a shiny object. But like you said, Shashank, any tool that you can gain some understanding in and some use case in now is important, because when it levels up, it's not going to go one level. It's going to go multiple levels. And if you're not playing with it now and trying to integrate it, it's crazy. And I've used my avatar successfully. That's the whole reason they brought me on as a partner in the company, because I was using it and getting business results and monetization out of it. So they're like, okay, yeah, let's play together. So, but yeah, HeyGen's a great one. And I love the flexibility that it gives you in terms of the number of avatars you can have, the situational. I could take a video right now and in 2 minutes upload it and have it generated as a separate avatar that will look as I do in this moment today. And so very cool. As we wrap up here, because man, again, we could go forever. Is there any last thought that you want to leave with the audience today?
No, just a couple of things. One, I think you briefly touched on it, the SOS, the shiny object syndrome. It's really important that we stay very focused on what we want to achieve and then pick the tool accordingly versus just looking. Again, nothing wrong in having fun if you want to have fun with it. But I have always, even when I went on Facebook in 2009 or went on YouTube there, my goal was very, very focused that I'm doing this to expand my network. I'm doing this to educate my clients. So have that end goal in mind as of what you're trying to do, because then that will help you pick the right tools. And two, in terms of books, I mean, you mentioned that your book is in editing. My book just went into editing a couple of weeks back. Read, watch, listen to as much as you can with any new topic. I'm a huge believer in learning new things. The rule that Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and practically probably most of the very, very successful people in the world, 5 hours of learning. You could have 6, you could have 4. 5 hours is just a guideline. But even understand that being one of the wealthiest people in the history of mankind, they still spend 5 or 6 hours a week learning new things. So you and I, of course, are way, way, way far behind. And there's no reason why we should not. And if you're trying to learn new topic, and that's the way I learn it, is immerse yourself in that topic. Read Jill's book, read my book, read 20 other books, listen to 100 podcasts. You'll be surprised just in 2 to 3 weeks of immersion in a topic, not just casually flipping one or watching half of this podcast. Those really, if you immerse yourself in any topic that sounds as if it's too hard or I have no idea of what it is, you will be very surprised how much you learn, and you'll be near expert level, if not expert level in some of those things. It's just, I know this was probably not the focus of the podcast, but I just wanted to say, read all of that, watch all of that, listen to all of that, and you'll be talking like us, probably even better next time you hear yourself on talking about AI. So that's just something for audience. Hopefully they can carry that home with.
I love that so much. As a lifelong learner, it's the way to go. So Shashank, thank you so much for your time, for your experience, for sharing your brilliance with us today. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I for sure did, getting to have this interview and this conversation. Please stay tuned. And of course, all the things that the podcast hosts are supposed to say, go like and subscribe and comment and follow and, all that jazz. And we'll see you again soon on another episode of Humanize Automation.